Under the dazzling city lights, where power and wealth dictate everything, a secret is waiting to be uncovered. A homeless girl, her eyes filled with resilience, has unknowingly stepped into a dangerous game, one ruled by greed and betrayal. No one believes that a wandering child could shake the world of the most powerful, but it is her very insignificance that becomes the spark to expose a sinister conspiracy. Will courage be enough to face the darkness, or will this secret remain buried forever? This story is not just a journey in search of the truth. It's a reminder that sometimes strength comes from the most unexpected places. Are you curious about the secret? Let's find out. The story begins. The evening sun began to set, casting its final rays of light on the towering buildings, their glass facades reflecting a pale glow onto the cobblestone streets below. The city buzzed with life. People hurried past in a constant rush, car horns blaring in an unrelenting cacophony, blending with the hurried clatter of footsteps. At the corner of a shadowed street, where skyscrapers cast their long silhouettes, a small figure stood, almost invisible, amidst the bustling crowd. Amara huddled there, her petite frame wrapped in a tattered old coat that barely shielded her from the biting cold of the twilight wind. In her hands she clutched a piece of cardboard, the makeshift bed that cradled her every night. Her eyes, bright with a flicker of hope, scanned the faces of passers-by, searching desperately for a trace of empathy. Then she saw her, a middle-aged woman stepping out of a sleek luxury car parked by the curb. Her perfectly coiffed hair, a sumptuous fur coat, and glittering jewelry adorning her wrists and fingers exuded wealth and authority. Amara hesitated for a moment, a faint glimmer of possibility lighting up her face. Maybe she'll help. Just a little is enough. Taking a deep, shaky breath to steady her nerves, Amara stepped forward timidly, her small hands outstretched. Her voice, hoarse from hunger and cold, broke through the din. "Please, I haven't eaten all day. Just a little help, and I can do anything to repay you." The woman turned her head, her sharp eyes locking onto Amara. She scanned her from head to toe, her gaze filled with disdain. Her red lips curled into a cold, mocking smile. Her voice, icy and cutting, slashed through the moment. "Don't touch me. This coat is worth more than your filthy little life." The words fell like shards of glass, shattering the fragile hope that had momentarily brightened Amara's heart. She froze, her trembling hands retreating. Around them, a few passers-by paused, their curiosity piqued. Some frowned in disapproval, fleeting flashes of indignation crossing their faces, but none stepped forward to intervene. Yet Amara did not give up. Despite the ache in her heart, her eyes burned with determination. She lifted her head and steadied her voice, trying to sound resolute. "I can work. I can shine shoes, clean, anything. I just need a chance." The wealthy woman laughed, a sharp, derisive sound that cut through the air.
"A chance? Who would want a filthy child like you touching their things? Shine shoes? Even my shoes wouldn't tolerate the stink of you." The cruel words landed like a slap, stinging Amara's pride. Humiliation churned in her chest, but she refused to bow her head. She drew a deep breath, her small hands clutching the frayed edges of her worn scarf. Her voice, though trembling, carried a steely resolve. "You don't know what I've been through. You don't understand how much strength it takes just to stand here and ask for kindness. If you won't help, fine, but you have no right to insult me." The woman arched a brow, her expression darkening with irritation at being defied. Tilting her head, her scarlet lips twisted into a scornful smirk. "Insult? You think you're entitled to respect? Don't delude yourself. Parasites like you only leech off others and create trouble. Take care of yourself instead of begging for pity." Her words sliced through Amara's defenses, leaving raw wounds in their wake. The girl remained silent, her lips pressed into a firm line. Yet in her eyes, despair had been replaced by a smoldering defiance. Around them, the crowd lingered. A few people shook their heads in dismay, while others discreetly raised their phones to record the unfolding scene. Still, no one intervened. The bustling city life continued to flow, leaving a 12-year-old girl to stand alone, clutching the last threads of her dignity. Amara stood her ground, her face burning as she blinked rapidly to stop the tears threatening to spill. Her small frame quivered under the woman's cold, cutting gaze. The humiliation weighed heavy on her shoulders, each word from the woman like a dagger tearing through the fragile armor she had painstakingly built. The wealthy woman, having delivered her final insult, prepared to leave. But just as she turned, a deep, steady voice called out, "That's enough." The crowd shifted, eyes turning toward the source of the voice. From across the street, a middle-aged man strode toward them. He was dressed impeccably in a dark suit, his tie neatly knotted and his polished leather shoes catching the fading light of the evening. His confident, measured stride carried an air of authority, as though he had no qualms about standing up for what was right in the face of public scrutiny.
Ridiculous! Are you seriously defending a filthy child like her? Can't you see she's just being a nuisance to everyone? The man didn't respond immediately. He stopped, placing himself in front of Amara like an unyielding wall. Then he locked eyes with the woman, his gaze calm yet imbued with sternness. No one deserves to be treated like that, especially not a child. The woman hesitated for a moment, caught off guard, but quickly regained her composure and sneered. "Can't you see her? A dirty little girl, standing here disturbing everyone? People like that don't deserve help." The man ignored her derision. Turning to Amara, his eyes softened, radiating warmth. A small ember to thaw the frost of hunger and despair etched into the child's heart. He spoke gently. "Are you all right? Don't let her words hurt you." Amara looked up at him, her lips trembling as if she wanted to say something but couldn't find the strength. Her eyes glistened with tears, not from pain, but from a deep, unfamiliar warmth, a kindness she had never before received from a stranger. The man took out his wallet, pulled out a large bill, and pressed it into Amara's tiny hand. He held her hands firmly but tenderly, as if to infuse them with strength. "Take this. You deserve a better life. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." The woman stood nearby, clutching her designer handbag tightly, as if it were the only anchor to her rising frustration. Her lips curled into a sneer, and her voice, sharp and scornful, sliced through the murmurs of the gathering crowd. "Helping her just to prove you're some kind of saint, huh? Your kindness won't be rewarded. People like her never change." The man turned back to her, his eyes sharp, like a blade cutting through her confidence. His voice remained calm, yet it carried an unyielding resolve. "Kindness doesn't need to be rewarded, but your coldness and disdain only make this world worse." The murmuring crowd grew larger. Some shook their heads in disapproval, their eyes judging the affluent woman. She could feel the weight of their stares, her face flushed with embarrassment. With a final huff, she stormed off, her high heels clacking harshly against the pavement. When she was gone, the man looked back at Amara. He placed a comforting hand on her shoulder and spoke with gentle encouragement. "Take care of yourself, all right? Don't ever forget, you deserve to live with dignity." Amara's voice wavered as she clutched the bill tightly in her hands, holding on to what felt like the first glimmer of hope she'd ever known. Her eyes brimmed with gratitude. "Thank you. Thank you so much." The man stood up, turned, and walked away, blending into the bustling crowd. But his departing figure left a profound impression on Amara, a small spark of trust in the goodness of humanity. As the elegant stranger disappeared into the sea of people, Amara wandered along the busy street, clutching the money tightly in her pocket. While her heart was warmed by the kindness she'd just experienced, a gnawing anxiety lingered. It was the most money she'd ever held, yet it felt fragile, like a flickering flame in the darkness, both a beacon of hope and a fragile thing easily extinguished. Her eyes landed on a small bakery. The sweet aroma of freshly baked bread made her stomach growl. She approached the door, her hand hesitating on the handle. Memories of the wealthy woman's disdainful gaze and biting words surfaced, rooting her in place. "Don't go in there!" Amara jumped at the voice. She spun around to see a girl a few years older than herself. Riley, with her jet-black hair tied hastily, a worn-out jacket riddled with holes, and scuffed shoes, looked at her with sharp eyes that seemed to pierce right through her. "Who are you?" Amara stammered, stepping back nervously. Riley smirked, a grin that was part friendly, part mocking. "I'm Riley, and I know if you go in there, they'll kick you out before you can say a word. Places like that aren't for people like us." Amara blinked in confusion. "But I just want to buy some bread." "Looking like that?" Riley crossed her arms, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Listen, if you want to survive here, you've got to be smart. Come with me. I'll show you a thing or two." Amara hesitated, but Riley's steady gaze left little room for doubt. With a reluctant nod, she followed. Riley led her down the street, away from the brightly lit bakery. She pointed toward a narrow alley a few blocks away. "There's a food cart over there. They don't care what you look like, as long as you've got money. But don't flash your cash around." Amara glanced in the direction Riley indicated, a faint glimmer of hope rising in her chest. Yet she couldn't help but wonder why a stranger would go out of her way to help her. "Why are you helping me?" Amara asked softly, her eyes searching Riley's face. Riley stopped walking, standing silent for a moment, as if carefully weighing her words. Finally, she sighed, her voice dropping to a somber tone. "Because you remind me of myself back then. When I first ended up on the streets, I was clueless, naive, and trusted the wrong people. I got robbed, beaten, and left with nothing. No one helped me. You can't survive out here unless you learn to protect yourself." Amara looked at Riley, gratitude shining in her eyes. Riley turned back, picked up a crumpled plastic bag from the ground, and pulled out a torn piece of newspaper. "Hide your money in this. Never let anyone see you with cash. If they do, you'll lose everything." Following Riley's instructions, Amara tucked her money into her shoe. She glanced at Riley and whispered, "Thank you. You've helped me more than you know." Riley led Amara to a food cart as promised. It was a small setup, selling sandwiches and drinks, manned by an older man hustling to serve a line of customers. Riley waved toward it. "There you go, but be careful. Don't let them know it's your first time here. They'll charge you extra if they think you're clueless." Amara nodded and approached the cart. She bought a sandwich and a bottle of water, eating quickly by the sidewalk. Riley stood nearby, arms crossed, her expression no longer as guarded as before. When Amara finished eating, Riley guided her to a secluded corner behind an abandoned building. "This is a good spot to sleep for the night. No one will see you here, and you'll be safer." Amara sat down, feeling her body relax slightly after the meal. She looked up at Riley, curiosity in her gaze. "How long have you been living here?" Riley shrugged, her eyes reflecting a mix of weariness and reflection. "Long enough to know no one's coming to save me." If you want to make it, you have to look out for yourself. Don't count on anyone." Riley's words gave Amara pause. She thought about the man who had helped her before, the warmth of his kindness still lingering. But she didn't argue, simply nodded and said, "Thank you. I don't know what I would have done without you." Riley chuckled, a genuine laugh this time. "Don't thank me. Just remember, not everyone's like me. Most people out here are only looking out for themselves. If you're not careful, you'll get crushed." Amara nodded, sensing the gravity in Riley's voice. For the first time, she felt like she wasn't completely alone. One evening, Amara and Riley walked through the bustling streets, neon lights blending with the hurried rhythm of footsteps. No one noticed the two girls weaving through the crowd, one frail, the other sharp-eyed and cautious. Riley led Amara down a narrow alley, occasionally stopping to point out hidden spots. "This is where you can hide if someone's chasing you, but don't stay in one place too long. People will figure you out." Amara followed silently, taking in every word and not letting her gaze stray from Riley's purposeful stride. Suddenly, Riley stopped short. "Look," she whispered, gesturing toward a man near a bakery across the street. Amara followed her gaze. The man was middle-aged, dressed neatly in a crisp shirt and pressed trousers, taking out his wallet to pay the vendor. Amara's heart skipped a beat. Her eyes widened as she recognized the familiar figure. It was him, the man who had helped her. Memories of that day flooded back like a powerful wave. She remembered his kind eyes, his deep, reassuring voice saying, "Don't let their words hurt you." She could still feel the warmth of his hand on her shoulder, a touch that had given her strength. "It can't be," Amara murmured, her voice tinged with disbelief and hope. Before she could say more, Riley's voice cut through, low and calculating. "That wallet. I bet it's full of cash. If we grab it, we'll be set for the week." Amara spun toward Riley, alarmed. "You're not serious, are you? You're not thinking of stealing from him?"
Riley didn't answer immediately. Her eyes remained locked on the man, her hand clenched in her pocket as if contemplating her next move. Amara grabbed Riley's arm, her voice urgent. "No, don't do this. He's not like the others. He helped me." Riley raised an eyebrow, skepticism laced in her expression. "Helped you? What do you mean?" Taking a deep breath to steady herself, Amara explained, "He's the one who gave me money the other day when I had nothing to eat. He's different, Riley. He's a good person." Riley laughed, the sound dry and bitter. "A good person? You're so naive, Amara. A good person might help you once, but they won't stick around. I don't care who he is. All I know is I need money to survive." "But you don't have to stoop to this to survive," Amara shot back, her voice firm, her eyes blazing with conviction. "If you take his wallet, you're not just betraying him, you're betraying yourself. Do you really want to become a thief, Riley?" "Betrayal?" Riley scoffed, her eyes flashing with irritation. "You wouldn't understand, Amara. I've got nothing to lose, no one to back me up like you do." Amara stepped closer, her gaze earnest and unwavering. "You don't have to do this, Riley. We've been through so much together. If you do the wrong thing, we're no better than those thieves out there. We can be different. We can do what's right." Riley stayed silent, her piercing gaze softened ever so slightly. She glanced back at the man, as if locked in an internal battle. Finally, Riley exhaled, letting her hand drop from her pocket. Her eyes glimmered with regret, tinged with a hint of relief. "You're right, Amara, but I hate admitting it." Turning away, Riley avoided Amara's gaze. Before leaving, her voice softened but remained firm. "Remember this, Amara. The world isn't full of good people like him. If you want to survive, never forget that." Amara stood quietly on the corner of the street, watching Riley's figure fade into the crowd. Riley's parting words echoed in her mind. Not everyone is as kind as he is. She could feel the bitterness in Riley's voice, yet Amara held on to her belief that kindness could still make a difference, even if it was just a sliver of hope. As Riley disappeared into the throng of people, a deep, warm voice spoke from behind her. "Are you all right?"
Amara startled and turned to see the familiar figure of a distinguished man, the one who had helped her before. He still wore his neatly pressed shirt, and his graying hair caught the dim light of the late afternoon. His face radiated calmness, but his eyes were filled with genuine concern. "You," Amara began, her eyes lighting up with surprise and relief. The man extended his hand. "My name is David, and you are?" "Amara," she replied, shaking his hand. David smiled warmly. "I remember you. I saw you standing here alone, and you seemed upset. Is something troubling you?" Amara lowered her head, clutching the edge of her worn jacket. After a pause, she looked up, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I just lost a friend. She thinks we have to do wrong to survive. But I don't believe that. I believe kindness can change everything." David froze momentarily, moved by her words. Placing a gentle hand on Amara's shoulder, his deep voice carried a soothing reassurance. "You're absolutely right. Even the smallest act of kindness can make a difference. I'm so proud of you for holding on to that belief." Amara looked up at him, her lips trembling. She couldn't quite find the words to express her feelings. To her, this man wasn't just someone who had helped her once, he was a symbol of her faith in humanity's goodness. As they spoke, a sharp voice cut through the warm atmosphere. "David, what are you doing here?" Amara flinched and turned to see a woman standing across the street. Victoria, David's wife. She wore an elegant black dress, glossy heels, and a luxurious fur coat that radiated authority. Her expression, however, was one of thinly veiled irritation as her sharp gaze landed on Amara. David turned to her, his tone calm and measured. "Victoria, I'm just talking to this young lady. What brings you here?" Victoria strode toward them, her heels clicking against the pavement with an icy precision. Her eyes bore into Amara like daggers, laced with contempt. "Another street kid? You know I don't like this, David. Can't you see that standing here talking to someone like her will draw unnecessary attention to us?" Victoria's words cut into Amara like a blade. She lowered her head but refused to walk away this time. David met Victoria's glare, his voice dropping in tone but firm in its resolve. "You don't need to speak like that. This young lady has done nothing wrong. If we can help someone, why shouldn't we?" Victoria let out a scornful laugh, her tone dripping with derision. "Help? David, you're always too soft-hearted. People like this only take advantage of others' kindness. You'll see the consequences soon enough." Amara couldn't take it anymore. She lifted her head, her eyes blazing with defiance. "I don't need your help, but you have no right to insult me like that." David looked at Amara, surprised by her courage, but Victoria merely smirked, her expression steeped in disdain. "Don't waste our time here, David," Victoria said, tugging at his arm. "We have more important things to do." Before leaving, David turned back to Amara, his gaze tender. "Will you be all right?" Amara nodded, forcing a small smile despite the ache in her chest. "I'll be fine. Thank you." David returned her smile and then followed Victoria into the bustling crowd. Amara stood there, watching their figures fade into the distance, feeling a hollow emptiness in her heart. After her encounter with David and Victoria's sudden appearance, Amara couldn't shake the suspicion building inside her. Victoria's cold and haughty demeanor left Amara feeling that the woman wasn't simply a wealthy, powerful individual. There was something deeper, something sinister at play. Victoria's words to David echoed in Amara's mind. "You'll soon face the consequences." It urged her to uncover who Victoria really was, not just to protect David, but to safeguard the trust he had placed in her. One late afternoon, as Amara wandered near an upscale neighborhood, she spotted Victoria stepping out of an exclusive boutique. Draped in an elegant black dress, her heels clicked with an air of superiority on the pavement. Amara ducked behind a nearby wall, her eyes fixed on Victoria's every move. She watched as the woman hailed a cab and climbed inside. Determined not to lose her, Amara broke into a run, weaving through alleys and shortcuts to keep the cab within sight. With no money for a taxi herself, she relied on her quick reflexes and knowledge of the streets. The cab stopped in front of a posh cafe, a known gathering spot for the wealthy elite. Amara watched from across the street, careful to stay inconspicuous, as Victoria strode into the cafe, exuding confidence. Through the large glass window, Amara saw Victoria take a seat at a corner table, across from an older man who exuded a sophisticated, calculating aura. Unable to hear the conversation, Amara crept closer, her curiosity piqued. Spotting a slightly open side window, she moved stealthily toward it, her heart pounding in her chest. From this vantage point, their voices were audible. "David has no suspicions, does he?" the man asked, his tone low and deliberate. "None," Victoria replied, a sly smile playing on her lips. "He trusts me completely. All I need is for him to sign the transfer papers without reading them closely. Once that's done, everything he owns will be mine." Amara froze, her heart racing. David had no idea about this scheme. If she didn't act, he would lose everything. The man leaned back, his expression cautious. "Are you certain about your lawyer? I can't afford any loose ends." Victoria chuckled dismissively, her voice dripping with smugness. "Relax. My lawyer has taken care of everything. David will never realize what's happening until it's too late." Trembling, Amara fished out a scrap of paper and a pen from her pocket. Her hands shook as she scribbled down the critical details. Asset transfer plan. David unaware. Transfer papers. Suddenly, Victoria's gaze flicked toward the open window. Alarmed, Amara instinctively ducked back, but her worn-out shoes accidentally splashed in a puddle, creating a soft yet noticeable sound. "Is someone out there?" Victoria's sharp voice cut through the air, her piercing eyes scanning the area. The man glanced up, but saw nothing unusual. "It's probably just the wind. Don't worry." Victoria didn't seem convinced. Rising from her chair, she moved toward the window, her expression tense. Sensing imminent danger, Amara slipped away, darting into the alley behind the cafe. Her heart hammered as she ran, clutching the scrap of paper tightly, as if it were the only evidence of the truth. She didn't stop until she was far from the cafe. Finally, she collapsed in a quiet corner, her mind racing. David had to know about this. He had helped her, and she couldn't let him be betrayed so cruelly. That night, Amara lay awake, clutching the crumpled paper, pondering her next steps. She realized that simply holding on to the information wasn't enough. She needed to act. The following morning, Amara made her way to the small park where David often spent his mornings. Sure enough, she spotted him sitting on a bench, his posture weary and reflective. Taking a deep breath to steady herself, Amara approached cautiously. "Mr. David, I need to talk to you," she said hesitantly.
David looked up, surprised to see her. He gave a faint smile, though his eyes held a hint of concern. "What is it, my dear? You look troubled." Amara sat beside him, pulling the crumpled paper from her pocket. She recounted everything she had witnessed at the cafe, the conversation between Victoria and the man, the plot to steal his assets. Her voice trembled as she spoke, but she held nothing back. David listened in silence, his face betraying a mix of shock, sorrow, and anger. When she finished, he sat still for a moment, his expression heavy with betrayal. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and measured. "I don't know what this means to me," David said, his voice trembling slightly. "I've suspected Victoria for some time now, but I didn't want to believe that the woman I loved could betray me like this." "What do you suspect?" Amara asked, her eyes full of curiosity. David sighed, his gaze distant. "I've been feeling unwell lately. My body's weakening. And my meals? They were all prepared by Victoria. Sometimes I wonder if she's been doing something intentional." Amara was stunned. What David had just said only strengthened her belief that Victoria was not only plotting to steal his assets, but might also be poisoning him.
"David, you have to leave her." David bowed his head, his voice barely audible. "I don't know what to do." Amara sat up straight, her eyes filled with determination. "I'll help you." David looked at her, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "Why would you do that?" Amara met his gaze, her voice steady. "Because you gave me a chance, and everyone deserves freedom." The two of them sat in silence, bound by a shared resolve. Finally, David nodded. "All right, I trust you." Amara knew she couldn't act alone. She decided to find Riley. Despite Riley leaving after their previous argument, Amara believed that deep down, Riley was still a good person. After searching through the familiar alleys, Amara finally found Riley sitting at the foot of a bridge, looking weary, her eyes staring off into the distance. "Riley!" Amara called out, running toward her. Riley raised an eyebrow, her tone hard. "It's you again. I thought you lived by your faith in goodness." "Riley, I need you," Amara said, her voice urgent. "I've discovered a big conspiracy, and I can't do this alone. You're the only one I trust." Riley frowned, but her gaze softened as she saw the seriousness in Amara's words. "All right, tell me," Riley replied, crossing her arms. Amara recounted everything she had heard and David's suspicions about Victoria. Riley was silent for a long moment, then nodded. "Fine. If you want to get to the bottom of this, I'll help. But don't regret it if things don't go the way you think." Amara and Riley spent the next few days tracking Victoria. They followed her to various places from upscale stores to quieter areas. Finally, one afternoon, they saw Victoria getting into a sleek black car, heading toward the suburbs. Amara and Riley quickly followed, using a bus and walking through small streets. The car stopped in front of a large mansion, situated on an empty lot, surrounded by a tall fence and a massive iron gate.
"Where is this?" Riley whispered. "This has to be where Victoria is hiding the evidence," Amara replied, her eyes gleaming with resolve. The two girls hid behind a large bush nearby, watching as Victoria entered the mansion. Through a large front window, they saw her talking to a man, presumably the same one she had met at the cafe. Amara and Riley carefully documented everything they saw, from the car's license plate to the items Victoria was carrying, to the exchanges between her and the man. Amara and Riley gathered enough information to convince David that immediate action was needed. Amara arranged to meet David at the mansion the next day, along with the police he had invited.
David walked into the grand living room of the mansion, where light from the crystal chandelier above illuminated the luxurious leather sofas and glass coffee tables. In front of him stood Victoria, the woman he had once trusted the most. Her face briefly showed surprise upon seeing him, but she quickly regained her confidence, crossing her arms and smiling smugly. "David, what are you doing here?" Victoria asked, her voice laced with sarcasm. David didn't answer right away. He placed the briefcase on the table and slowly opened it, revealing the evidence Amara and Riley had collected. The notes, photos, and testimonies about Victoria's plan were laid out before her. "Did you think I didn't know?" David said, his voice deep but resolute. "Everything you've done, all your schemes to steal my wealth, it's all been exposed." Victoria's face paled for a moment, but she quickly burst out laughing, trying to maintain her composure. "What are you talking about? Is this a joke? These papers don't prove anything." David stepped forward, his gaze cold. "Don't pretend, Victoria. I know everything. Not only did you plan to transfer my assets, but you've been poisoning me with every meal. Do you know how that makes me feel? The person I trusted the most turned her back on me like this." Victoria flinched, her eyes briefly showing panic, but she quickly regained her composure, her voice rising in anger.
You don't understand. Without me, you wouldn't have what you have today. Everything I have done, I did because I deserve it. You have no right to judge me." As David faced Victoria, Amara stood silently behind him, watching closely. But when Victoria noticed Amara, her eyes immediately flared with fury. "And you," Victoria shouted, pointing at Amara, "you filthy trash! Who do you think you are to interfere with my business? You're nothing but a dirty, homeless child. What do you think you'll gain from this, huh?" Amara hesitated for a moment, but she quickly regained her composure. She stepped forward, her eyes glowing with determination. "I know who I am, and I choose kindness over your dirty schemes," she said firmly. "Mr. David helped me, and I won't let you hurt him any longer." Victoria scoffed, her voice dripping with venom. "Kindness? Do you really think kindness will save you? You'll soon learn that the world isn't made for weaklings like you." Just then, footsteps echoed from the hallway. The police, who David had called earlier, entered the living room. One of them approached Victoria and handcuffing her. Victoria struggled, her eyes blazing with rage. She screamed in a high-pitched voice, "You can't do this to me, David! You'll regret this! You think I'll just give up? Amara, you'll pay for this, you'll see." Amara watched Victoria being dragged away, her eyes no longer filled with fear. Though Victoria's venomous words still hung in the air, they no longer hurt her. Amara knew she had done the right thing, and that was all that mattered. David placed a hand on Amara's shoulder, his voice full of gratitude. "Thank you, Amara. If it weren't for you, I don't know what I would have done." Amara smiled softly, but deep down, she knew this wasn't just her victory. It was a victory for kindness and courage in the face of cruelty and betrayal. After Victoria was taken away by the police, the atmosphere in the mansion seemed to settle. David and Amara sat in the large living room, where only the soft light from the chandelier reflected on the floor. The tension and worry seemed to melt away, replaced by an indescribable sense of peace.
David, still calm but with a deep sense of gratitude and appreciation in his eyes, looked at Amara. She was small in stature, but with a heart and courage far beyond her years. He silently acknowledged that it was she who had helped him reclaim the faith that Victoria had nearly destroyed. "You did very well, Amara," David said, his voice warm and gentle. "You didn't just save me, you showed me that sometimes the people we least expect carry the greatest strength." Amara lowered her head slightly, her hands gently clutching the edge of her shirt. Though David's words warmed her heart, she still couldn't shake the worry. I don't know where I should go now, Mr. David. Life on the streets isn't easy, but I don't want to be a burden to anyone." David sat in silence for a long while, as though weighing something. Finally, he smiled, his eyes filled with sincerity. "You don't need to worry about that. I want to help you start fresh, not just with money, but with an opportunity. You deserve a better future." Amara looked up at him, her eyes sparkling like little lights in the dark. "You mean he helped you go to school? To learn and to grow? But most importantly, I want you to believe that you deserve the good things life has to offer." David's words left Amara speechless. Her whole life, she had never imagined receiving such an opportunity. The days spent wandering the streets, enduring the coldness and scorn of society, had almost made her lose faith in herself. But now, the gentle look in David's eyes and the sincerity in his words felt like a flame warming her heart. I don't know what to say. I don't think I deserve it." Amara's voice trailed off softly. David shook his head, his gaze unwavering. "You have proven not only that you deserve it, but that you are someone special. Don't doubt yourself, Amara. You are not a burden. You are a treasure." Amara lowered her head, her shoulders trembling, but this time it wasn't tears of sorrow, it was emotion and relief. She lifted her head, a gentle smile blooming on her lips, full of newfound belief. "I'll do my best. I want to show you that you were right to trust me." Amara then walked out of the mansion with David, her eyes shining with hope. The morning sun cast its first rays on the long road ahead, signaling a new beginning.
Amara was no longer the homeless girl huddling in a corner of the street, scorned and rejected by the world. She had found belief in herself, in the goodness of others, and in the future she could now build for herself. The gentle smile on Amara's face made anyone who saw it feel warmth and emotion. It was a smile not just of joy, but of the belief that everyone deserves a chance to change their life. Amara's story serves as a powerful reminder that even in the harshest of circumstances, kindness and courage possess the transformative power to change lives. She faced contempt, pain, and danger, yet she never gave up on believing in her own worth and the goodness of others. If you were in Amara's position, would you have the courage to stand up for what is right, even in the face of adversity? Or if you were David, would you be willing to trust someone with a second chance? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might become a powerful source of inspiration, sparking positive change in someone else's life. Thank you for supporting the channel. Please like, share, and subscribe to receive the latest updates. The stories are collected from various sources and do not represent any individual or organization. They are shared with the intention of spreading human values in life and have been rewritten with the support of AI. If there are any mistakes, kindly overlook them with understanding. Wishing you all the best in life.